Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
This is an absolute moral victory. The mayor of Prince Albert may have been able to push health authorities into fining this poor church, but a prosecutor was not willing to take this dog's breakfast of a case to trial. We've got a mayor who appears to be using public health regulations to carry out his petty grievances against this church. And I don't think any smart prosecutor would want any part of that. I don't think any smart prosecutor would want the optics of a courtroom full of marginalized people that Vern Temple has helped over the years, that he's fed, that he's clothed, that he's housed, that he's gotten clean, that he's brought to Jesus. Could you imagine what that would look like, looking out at all those people that Vern has helped and saying to them, no, the province needs his money? Good news on the Fight the Fines front. We've got a victory in Saskatchewan for the Full Gospel Outreach Centre and Pastor Vern Temple, and we couldn't have done it without you. Now, the Full Gospel Outreach Centre became one of Rebel News' Fight the Fines cases after the Prince Albert Saskatchewan Church was fined $14,000 for allowing the congregation to sing without masks on. I know, it's crazy. The church came under fire for holding a 100-day revival series, but the church also offers outreach and food and clothing and comfort to the homeless and addicted in downtown Prince Albert. Now, at the time, this fine to this church that devotes almost all of its resources to poverty reduction was the largest issued in Canada. And the fine seemed to be done at the specific request of Prince Albert Mayor Greg Dion, who had previously called on the government to fine Pastor Temple and the church after he blamed the church for an outbreak that spread to northern communities. Now, finding a church that reaches out to marginalized communities that the city of Prince Albert should be doing more to help was outrageous. So I went to Prince Albert to talk to Vern Temple and his congregation, to see the facility in downtown Prince Albert where he preaches, and to offer him some help through our largest civil liberties project to date, FightTheFines.com, where we put normal people and pastors and businesses in touch with top civil liberties lawyers at no cost to them to fight their lockdown fines in court. Take a look at some of my trip to Prince Albert.
That I was gifted to minister to the poor. Not everyone is gifted to minister to the poor. Not everyone. And I don't judge Christians for not reaching out, because they're just not gifted to reach out to people that are just like crazy lives, you know. And so I know that I was gifted at that time. The Lord gave me the gift of mercy, and you know, that's been part of the reason why I've been able to persevere, because when you know you're called to do something, then there's no turning back.
Now, this is not a rich church. In fact, it's one of the poorer churches that I've ever seen in my life. And to take $14,000 from this church right before Christmas would be literally taking food out of the mouths of the homeless of Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. And there's been some friction between the mayor and this church in the past, with Vern Temple telling me that the city wants to take his building and demolish it and then use the lot for something else. So we put Vern Temple and the Full Gospel Outreach Centre in touch with the incredible Sarah Miller from JSS Barristers in Calgary. And she's been working so hard to get that lockdown ticket thrown out of court, but she was willing to take it all the way to trial. But it sounds like the prosecutors weren't all that willing to go to trial, and they dropped the fine after 8 months of hard fighting from Sarah. Here's Sarah to tell us the good news.
Yeah, so Sheila, this is a really great news story, because we got the charge stayed against Pastor Vern Temple and his church this week. The Crown finally, we got in contact with the Crown. We got them to actually look at this file and realize that the conviction wasn't likely, it wasn't necessary. And this was a huge ticket, as you may remember. It was $14,000 that the Full Gospel Church had been fined, and now nothing. So that's great. That we got that done actually before we ever had to go into court. It took a very long time, since September to now, to get the proper person on the file. We had public health officials from Saskatchewan Health Authority dealing with us initially. They were not providing disclosure. They were putting up some barriers to even get disclosure, refusing disclosure until quite late, essentially, is what they were indicating. We finally got a Crown prosecutor on the file who obviously got us disclosure, looked at the file, listened to what we had to say, and ultimately stayed the charge before we ever had to go into court. So first court date was supposed to be May 31st. And we got it done before that. So really good.
This is an absolute moral victory. The mayor of Prince Albert may have been able to push health authorities into fining this poor church, but a prosecutor was not willing to take this dog's breakfast of a case to trial. We've got a mayor who appears to be using public health regulations to carry out his petty grievances against this church. And I don't think any smart prosecutor would want any part of that. I don't think any smart prosecutor would want the optics of a courtroom full of marginalized people that Vern Temple has helped over the years, that he's fed, that he's clothed, that he's housed, that he's gotten clean, that he's brought to Jesus. Could you imagine what that would look like, looking out at all those people that Vern has helped and saying to them, no, the province needs his money so that he can't help people. He has to give that money to the government. All because he didn't make marginalized and homeless people wear masks when they were singing the praises of Jesus Christ. Now, this case to me is why Fight the Fines is so important. $14,000 could have broken this church, could have forced them to vacate the building, give it over to the city so that the city could demolish it. And it could have meant that Vern Temple's ministry to the downtrodden and forgotten in Prince Albert would have ended. This ticket could have forced lives to be lost in Prince Albert. It's just that simple. And so while it's a church today, those same scenarios play out in families that have been hit hard by the pandemic with job losses, and then they get a $1,200 or $2,000 fine. It's enough to destroy them too. So let me thank all of you at home who have donated and continue to donate to fightthefines.com. You helped Vern Temple, but you're also helping nearly 1,200 other normal people, businesses, and churches. We could not have done this without you. Sarah could not have done this without your support. And the Full Gospel Outreach Center now gets to keep $14,000 in their bank account to do the Lord's work instead of signing it over to the government. Friends at home, you're making a real difference. And I know that this is a big story and a big fine, but you're also helping normal people get their tickets tossed out all the time because they have these great lawyers working for them. Our work isn't even close to done. Like I said, there are roughly 1,200 other people that we're helping through fightthefines.com. They still need our help, and there's so much work left to do. To support the important work that our Fight the Fines program is doing, please donate today at fightthefines.com. And all donations there now qualify for a charitable tax receipt through the Democracy Fund, a registered Canadian charity that works to advance and support civil liberties. Thank you again for making this victory happen. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. If you've received a lockdown ticket, we don't want you to pay it. We want you to fight it. Send it to us at fightthefines.com. And if we think your case has merit, we'll put you in touch with a top criminal lawyer or civil litigator at no cost to you. And if you'd like to support the important work that we are doing through fightthefines.com, donate at that website, fightthefines.com, and donations there now qualify for a charitable tax receipt through the Democracy Fund.